I'm with Robert Boyanovsky, who's the Vice President of Enterprise Mobility Product Management at AT&T Business. Robert, great to see you. Thanks for making time to catch up.
Good to see you again. Yeah,
Indeed.
absolutely.
Now, I would love to have a conversation around what's happening within your world, and particularly AT&T Business, with the topic of enterprise mobility. But before we kick into that, maybe if you could give us a 30,000-foot view of AT&T Business's 5G strategy overall.
Well, Des, it's been a year into this journey so far for us. Like this time last year, we were just launching the first, cities around 5G. It was an exciting time, and we said it was led by enterprise, and still to this day it is. So it's an exciting opportunity for me, sitting in the enterprise space, to work with business customers and driving the adoption of this new technology. Our strategy is very simple. It's threefold. It's a mobile strategy, so your typical handsets, tablets, MiFi pucks, and the like that are going out following the build. Similar to what you'd experience the LTE product set today. So nothing truly dramatic there for enterprises. Faster speeds, more bandwidth, those kind of experiences. And then on the fixed side, the second leg of the stool for us in business is really driving broadband connectivity to businesses through the network. So, we have a lot of assets at AT&T. We're very blessed in that way, where we have fixed products, we have wireless products, and in 5G kind of gives you this next flavor of broadband connectivity to your business. So think broadband-like services, but over a mobile network that gives customers all the benefits of mobility. So you don't have to have these long install intervals. It's a SIM that gets provisioned instantly, basically, and gives customers this quality of service, high reliability experience that they're looking for in a kind of national footprint. So fixed. And then the cool stuff we've been doing a lot of innovation around is around the edge, right? Maybe the most hype word of the year last year, but in the mobile space, it's the first time that we're taking this virtual network function and putting that into the hands of the customer so they can really take advantage of all of the data coming off of their wireless endpoints, and to do something unique and different with them and really unpack some of these use cases that we continue to talk about, right? Around ultra low latency and all the buzzwords that come with that. You really can drive these VR experiences, these training experiences, digital twinning experiences with businesses that help them drive their operation. And that's really what's happened over the last probably 6 months with our customers, is they're getting very specific and very real experiences, which is really exciting. It's coming to life.
I imagine, like all carriers and operators and telcos, you've had the similar challenges in that you've got to go through a digital transformation of your own in many ways. You've got to adopt cloud models. You've had to, in many ways, become your own first customer in many ways with that digital transformation and transition to cloud and software-defined everything, software-defined networking, network function virtualization. That must be an interesting challenge. That, I guess, is a challenge that faces your clients as well, and is that as you've gone through the process of becoming a new organization to offer this capability where 5G requires that. You can't physically plug and play things to make 5G work in a timely fashion and at the scale it needs. Your clients must be going through a similar journey, and I imagine they can learn from your experience in transitioning your own organization, as well as what you've put out in the field. They can now apply that to their organizations in various verticals and industry sectors.
Yeah, sure. What I experience and what I see a lot when customers invite me onto their campus, into their boardrooms, et cetera, to talk to them about technology is really about helping them define their strategy. And the very first point of this in these conversations, and they're all playing with the technology at some point: private networks, hybrid networks, the virtualization of networks, and 5G versus Wi-Fi. But I think the challenge or the question I push back on is, well, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? What is your use? Why are you asking these questions? Are you playing with technology for technology's sake? Or do you really have something you're trying to unpack? And I think that's really important. A lot of our customers are all asking questions. They're trying to solve some of their own questions on their own, or individually working throughout the ecosystem. They'll call in AT&T and we'll give them a perspective, and we're trying to be as holistic as possible. Whether it's managed Wi-Fi networks, private networks, some sort of hybrid in between, is it licensed or unlicensed spectrum? There's a lot of questions, and I think the very first thing that enterprises need to try to address internally is, what is it that they're trying to achieve? What customer outcome, what operational benefit are they trying to get to? And then push. Some of the early adopters that we've had didn't exactly have the strategy figured out, how they're going to use this over a 5-year, 7-year time horizon, but they knew they didn't want to be late. And so we pushed technology in, we pulled through applications with us and experiences with us, and we exactly didn't have all that tech in-house too, but we reached out to the communities that are out there, pulling some of these experiences through and showcasing them. So it's really been an interesting and fun experience, and hopefully you get to see some of that at the AT&T Stadium.
Indeed, I'm looking forward to that.
The Dallas Cowboys are a great storied franchise in the U.S., and very tech forward. And as we built the first 5G stadium in the U.S., we didn't exactly know what the experiences were going to be, but we knew that it was something exciting. And we've developed multiple experiences in there, and some of them are really kind of taking off, right? We're engaging customers at a new level in these immersive comms. You'll see that Posed with the Pros is one of the examples where you're immersive and interactive with the actual team and the assets of the Cowboys, and it really draws you in the experience. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to put a little bit more wood behind the arrow. We're just not lighting the network up. We're pulling the experiences through so people can imagine that. And I think that's really important because I don't think we've figured out all these applications yet.
No.
We want to showcase it and invite the innovators to come with us on this journey.
Well, yeah, very much. I'm very much of the opinion that we have a Cambrian explosion type experience coming at us. That we hear the phrase that companies used to disrupt each other. Now customers disrupt companies, and they have a far broader imagination of how they want to apply things than we will ever have. And I think that's going to be something we have to get rid of. Well, you've given us some good insight into kind of what you're doing strategically and where you're going with that and where you've come from. And I guess one of the things we hear a lot of is the future where 5G is going from. And you mentioned a couple of things you're doing today. What are some of the other things that are happening just today? I mean, you've got like connected hospitals, you've got a connected ambulance, you've got very, very widely connected stadiums, you've done city trials. What are some of the other use cases? I know you've got some manufacturing ones.
Yeah.
Give us some examples, because a lot of people hearing about 5G is coming, it's a future, it's great, but I think a lot of people are also interested in, well, what's happening today? You've given us a couple of good examples.
Yeah.
What are some of the other ones you can share?
So Des, a year ago, we were talking about it's coming, right? And we're now in this time sitting here today where there are experiences happening now. And one example, live example, is Vitas Healthcare. They are the nation's leading healthcare provider in end-of-life healthcare and hospice. And their chief medical officer, as well as their CIO, got together on, what are we doing around, patient care and using technology to change this end-of-life experience for, their customers, basically. And so they're using an augmented reality as a pain augment or therapy, using the technology. And so they tell a very emotional story about end-of-life, high pain thresholds that people are trying to deal with. 10 out of 10, the opioid crisis is certainly in play here. And taking customers into this augmented reality with an experience, you think about this particular type of use case, it is essentially in homes. It isn't in hospitals. It is patient care at the most extreme remote locations, right? You're in your house. You're trying to connect with family, leave a legacy, leave memories, and wouldn't it be great if, and we've done this with them, to kind of experience this augmented reality, take your mind off of what you're going through right now and leave that legacy back for family to kind of remember the experiences that you're going through. And they tell stories about one particular patient going from a 10 out of 10 on pain, not sleeping for weeks on end, going through these sessions, these augmented virtual reality sessions, and taking the pain down to 6 out of 10, sleeping for hours that they haven't been able to sleep, kind of enjoying some peace and relaxation here. So I think we really didn't think about that. Like, we weren't building 5G technology for end-of-life care, but we certainly knew with the benefits of the tech that some of these virtual reality experiences would come to life and be mobile and be available and accessible. And that's really one that's real. It's happening today. We're continuing to create more content and push that out to more clinicians with that company that I mentioned with VITAS.
Wow,
well, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to write a book on that one. It reminds me of the fact that at the end of the day, all the technology we've been building over the history of humanity and all the things we're designing on a daily basis are actually for humanities. It's for us, the humans. And I think often we forget about that. We make smart trucks, smart factories, smart robots, but in the end of the day, they're here to serve us. And I think the end-of-life experience is probably the most real moment we're going to have in our human lives. So I'm picturing, as you're saying that, that I'm sitting there, if I'm a lonely old fellow in the outback of Australia with my family gone, don't care, I could gently pass away in a augmented or virtual reality world of watching the Niagara Falls.
Yeah,
and I'd rather that.
Maybe with your family, so if you're on Ayers Rock and they're in Melbourne or wherever they're at, you can bring everybody in. And that's another aspect of it. You can bring everybody into this experience. Another thing, real quick is, in the educational space, higher educational space, institutions, especially engineering-centric, science and technology type institutions, are working with us to build out innovation labs. University of Miami, we just announced today with a partnership with Magic Leap, an AT&T business for a 5G connected campus. So we're starting, of course, in the engineering school, library, the architectural school there, and we're bringing the technology in to give them access to what could be the future applications that are to come. So it's not, you don't think about it as, here's the kid with their smartphone and who's really paying the bills at a business consumer proposition. No, it's more about let's bring the tech to where these young minds are at and helping the ecosystem around it innovate with us and kind of spur that on.
It's an exciting time. And you mentioned Magic Leap. I know there's a great partnership there with AT&T Business and Magic Leap. I saw a couple of amazing demos on the floor here, just running around the showcase, where one organization was doing analytics in essentially a Minority Report styled interface in 3D, looking at data, looking at financial records, longitudinal, real-time and streamed in 3D. And I could look at my portfolio and move it up and down and stretch it and copy it and replay it a million times and see if I was going to make money. I thought that was fascinating. But the one that really struck me was the Brain Lab, where they not only could allow, as you said, with education and so forth, particularly in STEM, medical students could watch a real surgeon doing a real surgery on someone's brain and experience that and gain experience and learn from it. But then you could take that recording and replay it in a virtual sense and actually, sort of gamify that learning experience. And that is, because I was saying that they're finding it hard to get cadavers. And there's a whole bunch of cultural and religious reasons it's getting harder and harder to find bodies to practice on. We don't have the plague, for example. But, even then, I think, that whole experience of that virtual reality and immersive mixed reality technology is possible, not just over 5G, but the technologies you can interconnect and the data sets you can move around. Now they can replay that. If they do it, it's kind of like that game where if you touch a side, it goes buzz, right? You lose. I don't want to be the one that they're doing that on and the machine goes buzz if I'm alive, right? They can now do 1,000 or 100,000 runs through that until they don't make a mistake or whatever the case may be.
Correct, yeah.
And then we can look at all that data and learn from it and do analytics and figure out, well, it went buzz because of that. That, to me, I just sat there, it took my breath away because there can't be any more real use case than fixing my brain where I don't want someone to make a mistake. And here's the technology that you've enabled. That's now and today. And I think this is the thing that a lot of people want to know about. Well, what are people doing today? What are customers using today? And I thought, well, from the education side of things where kids are coming into the system and learning all the way through to kind of that anecdote you said at end of life, we're now seeming to touch, well, AT&T businesses certainly, almost every part of humanities from education, learning, training on the job through to end of life, and then transport, logistics, getting food to my table. It's almost like it's not touching, there isn't a place that it's not touching, in a positive sense. Yeah,
so within Magic Leap, when you think about virtual reality experiences, it doesn't have to be as sophisticated as brain surgery. But you see the power of collaborating, getting multiple people into that experience, which is a unique Magic Leap value proposition, multiple people can be in this learning experience, and it can be as simple as, look, we have thousands and thousands of stores worldwide, and we make cheeseburgers.
Right.
And I don't want the cook to show up to the, to the stove unless they've gone through a cooking training class in a virtual reality experience.
Yep.
That's not brain surgery,
No.
but there's operational benefits for that, and there's certainly training cycle times that get cut off. So anything around training and educating a workforce, a procedure, as sophisticated as brain surgery or mechanical engineering, building airplanes, building whatever it is that have high or low thresholds of error, is going to be improved by these kind of new technologies. And you don't have to wait for a nationwide 5G network to do that.
Right.
Right. This technology exists today, and you really, if I could leave one point to enterprises, you really need to be pushing, the teams internally within your organization to see what can we start with right now. What's out there right now that's tangible, that could actually give us a strategic advantage in the marketplace if we started today.
There's a great line I read recently in a report where it said something to that effect, and that is that those organizations who have leveraged technology early have invariably gained such a significant lead on their competitors, the competitors may never actually catch up. So I love that point, because a lot of people are probably sitting on the sideline thinking, when do I start? But some of their competitors are already starting, and that's where they need to be. With all of that in mind, I mean, you're one of the best positioned people in the world to be able to answer this. What does the evolution of 5G look like as we enter 2020? I mean, you've got some amazing real-world case studies you've done around health and sporting and so forth. What do you think 5G is going to look like in 2020?
Yeah, 2019 was about establishing the network, getting it started. 2020 in the United States is going to be a very competitive place for 5G. Nationwide networks are going to be born. First half of next year will be nationwide with our 5G network.
Wow.
You're going to see more applications follow. And I think that's the interesting thing is the network has to be there, correct? Right, all the backhaul needs to be in place. That's not overnight. That's going to take time. The devices have to propagate. The sensors and the endpoints need to catch up, and the applications. So there's a lot of investment going in right now to build out the ecosystem. And I think next year, 2020, right around the corner, you're going to see a lot more applications show up, a lot more devices that surround, more ubiquity in coverage. It's going to feel like a 5G world next year, where in 2019 felt, it was here. There was a lot of talk about it, but it was a little narrowly here, if
maybe early as well.
Yeah, and for sure early. New, first revs of phones, first revs of devices. Certainly very early on. So next year, I think you're going to be in this standpoint where the consumers are going to start feeling these experiences. Right now, it's very much been an enterprise play, very specific use cases, trying to prove out business models with the technology, and a lot of promise there. And in 2020, you'll start to see this consumer bend to the marketplace.
Okay. In some of the big spaces we've seen with digital transformation, the adoption of big data and analytics, data science, historically we had some very big sunk costs to get that infrastructure and routers and switches and servers and racks. From what you're saying, I get the sense that 2020 is going to be a year where if we adopt cloud models and become cloud natives, we're not going to have some of those big sunk cost requirements. We can actually spin up infrastructure and run virtual environments and test and learn and trial in that sort of space in your world and AT&T business without having to sell the house, as it were. Is that a sense that you're getting, that organizations are able to dip their toe, if you like, without betting the farm on it, and do that fail and fail fast, try something, learn, see what works, what doesn't work, and then scale it up?
Yeah, absolutely. And it all starts with coverage. You need good quality cellular coverage, and we're in a great position now in the United States, having America's best network, fastest network as well. It starts with really good coverage. And I think for enterprises, what they're trying to do now is, there's this debate about 5G versus Wi-Fi and how, does one replace the other, and what should I be doing on my next refresh? And I think I go back to the first question is, what are you trying to do within your operation? Is it more reliability? Uptime is an issue or downtime's an
Yeah.
issue. Are you trying to unpack things that you can't get to today because you've got a fixed environment and you're not flexible? And so once you've figured out your operational needs, then you can come back in and say, well, which access technology supports this?
Perfect.
Is it a Wi-Fi solution? Is it a private implementation, or is it a straight cellular connectivity solution, either with an edge compute platform, which is very much a localized kind of private network for customers that they can use today, or is it in this kind of network edge where you can spin up those resources very quickly and generate those benefits and understand what the experiences are going to be in a very quick cycle time for us and our customers. So I do think this idea of you don't have to study it, you can just go do it and then report back, here's what the outcomes are, is going to be reality for us next year.
And I think one of the things that I was thinking about just as you were answering that was that a lot of organizations fixate on a single big outcome, and yet it seems to me from what you're saying is that we can actually look at contextual outcomes, as in where do I want to be in 90 days? What do I want to be in 6 months? Where am I going to be in 12 and 18 months? And apply that context to the outcome you're focusing on. Is that, do you build a lab? Do you skill up your workforce? Do you trial a service? Do you work with a client? I wonder if that's something you're seeing now where organizations are thinking, well, I don't need to think about just one outcome. Maybe I think about the iterative steps and what those outcomes might need and what I have to invest in today, as opposed to, again, bet the farm on it.
Yeah, the leaders that we see in the various verticals or industries don't exactly have the outcome in mind, but they know they have to react first or be left behind.
Okay.
And so they're engaging our teams here at AT&T to talk to them about, well, what should our strategy be? What do you think our data growth is going to look like with this proliferation of endpoints, right?
Yes.
Millions of sensors packed into either a fixed location or mobile location. They're really asking more questions, which is exactly what they need to do. But I do think it's have a strategy, know what your problem you're trying to solve, come ask experts in the industry about what the pros and cons are, and try to drive some change. Now, sitting here in November, budgets are getting set for next year. Now's the time to really solidify what your plan is. Yeah. And if you wait 30 days from here, Des, you're talking 2021 all of a sudden.
Yes.
Right, these capital cycles.
It's nearly Christmas already.
Yeah, they're annualized plans in a lot of these giant enterprises.
I don't even know if I've paid off my Amex debt for last Christmas. No, absolutely. And one of the things I want to reiterate from what you just said there was that too many organizations are trying to be a telco, an IT shop, a cybersecurity shop, and yet they're probably a bank or an airline or a transport company. And I think one of the reoccurring themes I'm seeing around the place, which you just highlighted, was stick to your core business and build those partnerships and relationships such as AT&T Business and all the capabilities you have, and learn from what you've got, because you've worked with so many organizations globally in something like 180 countries, but even just in North America, you know the pitfalls because you've already done many of these things, and you can share that experience and that knowledge without disclosing where you got it from to help my organization avoid those pitfalls and invest wisely. And I think that's something that a lot of organizations are still coming to grips with, that it's okay to open the front door and welcome you and go, well, we don't know enough about this, help us out. Or help us write a strategy, create a roadmap, figure out what we're doing on data, or what are we doing on cybersecurity. Final question, if I can.
Sure.
This is a big one. Based on everything you've seen so far in 2019, as you said, it's a very exciting year, but it's an early year. What do you think your customers are going to be most surprised about with regard to the context of 5G? Are there some outliers that you've seen out there with your existing work and development research and so forth that might have just gone, that's a eureka moment, didn't expect that?
That's a great question.
It's a big one, I'm sorry.
Do I have an answer for it? I'm not sure, but we start thinking about what's possible and what's likely to come. I think next year, virtual reality will be more main stage. Right. I think that's going to start showing up in big ways. I also think there's a lot happening on the gaming side of things. I think you'll see some interesting consumer-based applications that are going to come forward next year. This year it's been a lot of trials and applications, and then in the enterprise space, I do think next year we move out of pilots and trials to commercialization and networks, private networks. We just announced with the University of Miami our first commercial multi-access edge compute product. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically your private cellular system. It's a managed service from AT&T, gives you all the localized data off of all of your applications and endpoints on your premise. It drives under 10 milliseconds of latency.
Wow.
So if you have really interesting virtual reality or AR applications and they're mobile in your factory floor, in your hospital, in your warehouse, in your DC, et cetera, it's available now. So I think next year we're going to move from POCs and trials and tests to implementations and running these networks, which will be exciting.
It will. It's going to be a very exciting year. I almost can't wait for it, but I don't want the year to be over because that will age me quickly. Robert, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been great to get all these amazing insights, and congratulations on an amazing year so far. I cannot wait to see what you'll bring for us in 2020.
Thanks, Des. I appreciate it as well.
Cheers.